So yeah, just kind of connecting into the body, into our bodies, into the body of Earth. Yeah, I'm gonna do a quick elemental purification process. Uh, just moving through the different energy centers, the chakras, and clearing out from the root chakra to the crown, and then landing back in. Yeah. Yeah, let's call in sacred space and then we'll do the cleansing. Yeah. Mm.
So we're connecting with our higher selves
Mm.
and feeling the Mama Gaia beneath us and within
Connecting
us,
with the soul,
smiling deeply.
with the fundamental body that we live within, the cells, the tiny gods within us, all parts of us.
And the deep earth frequencies holding us and smiling up at us and smiling into every part of every one of those cells, every part of
Connecting with
us.
all our aspects and places and spaces and inviting them to come for healing and receiving.
And connecting with the great sky above us, the descending energies, and inviting them, opening our beings to receive them, the light of now, the breath of now.
Opening the lines to our team and our spiritual guides, our parallel incarnations, and creating that web of connections that we walk with them, that always works with us. And may the medicine of this ripple out.
And
And may
connecting with the
any channels
mountains
which need to be open be open.
and the stones to help us to deeply ground into this now time infinitely across timelines, to the waters that remember all,
Mm.
to the plants and the animals and all of creation, all of life,
Mm.
all that is.
Speaking to the gurus, the teachers, the practitioners of the tantric lineages, specifically the lineage we are together with, the lineage of Kamadeva, and inviting that to connect and support with us as we explore this energy of Eros, of karma, to work with it, to flow with it, to unlock it, to bring the lessons and the learning that we need.
Also deeply inviting the frequencies of the Christed Feminine, the Mary and the Magdalenes, Marys, and all of the wisdom that they hold around divine union within and outwardly as well,
Mm-hmm.
in this process of co-creation and living life well with an open heart and an open mind for the greatest and the most whole good of all, for the children, for the future.
We're going to be working with the sounds of the Tibetan rainbow meditation. Those of you who we know who've gone through the Kuchina process will know these. And it's starting from the root, and we're folding the elements into each other. So we're starting from the root, and we're folding earth into water. Water folds into fire. Fire folds into air. Air folds into space. Space folds into mind. Mind folds into consciousness.
Working specifically with the directional aspect of the Tibetan rainbow meditation in this folding in process.
So earth dissolves in the four directions. Then water dissolves downward. Fire dissolves upward. Um, Air dissolves in all directions. Space dissolves into the ever expanding sphere. Mind dissolves into duality, and consciousness
through duality.
through duality. and consciousness well, they all dissolve through
through.
through the four directions, through down, through up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I will speak it.
Yeah, and we'll do the sounds. And so we're going to do each sound 16 times on the way up, and then we're going to do it all as one sound on the way down.
There's a counting technology which I'd like to show you, which is counting on the fingers. 1, 2,
Using
3,
using the joints.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's the spaces between the joints, really.
Yeah.
Very useful for mantra work and
Yeah, base 12,
cyclical.
right?
12, 24. Yeah.
And you can do base 12 and you can keep one set of 12, two sets of 12, three sets of 12 on the other hand. It's
Yeah.
very good.
Human design is magnificent.
And it's also, this is called in Nyasa, which is also putting things into the joints, but we won't go too much into that right now. Really?
Don't make loud sound too much because
Tokos.
Zoom will go freak out.
Okay. Okay, so we'll do it relatively softly. Okay. A.
Eh, eh, eh,
Dissolving in four directions into water. Through
eh,
the four directions into water.
eh,
And
eh, 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 eh,
I, 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 water dissolving downward into I, 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 I,
Yay!
I, I,
I,
I, I, I. Ooh. Ew. 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 Fire dissolving upward in this space.
Ew.
Ew. Ew. Ew.
Ew.
Ew. Ew. Ew. Ew. Ew.
Shoo. Fire dissolving upward into air.
Into air, sorry. Yes, fire
Say
dissolving
the words
into
in the
air.
beginning.
Now air dissolves in all directions into
Inwardly
space.
and outwardly.
In all directions into space.
Back to throat.
Ooh. The ever-evolving sphere, space dissolves into mind.
Throat to third eye.
Om. 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 Om.
Um, 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 um,
Now, mind dissolves through duality into consciousness, into no direction at all. Mm. And we just stay here for 3 full breaths. And now, with all the elements and centers purified, and from that space of emptiness, we bring everything all the way back down.
Consciousness lands in the crown, with no direction. Mind lands in the head in the third eye with a direction 2.
Mm.
Space appears in the throat in the ever-expanding sphere. Air appears in the heart with all directions possible.
Ooh.
Fire appears in the solar plexus with a rising. Water appears in the hara with the descending.
Ah.
Earth appears in the base out infinitely in the four directions.
And mhm, mhm.
Get some water.
Okay. Ah. Hmm. So this is yeah, it's part of the Kamadeva Sri Vidya, but instead of using the Sanskrit chakra sounds, we're using the Tibetan rainbow sounds. So we've it's a bit of a remix, kuchinaing, a bit of a remix going on there. Mhm. Um, okay, yeah. So going pro, what happened, how it happened, how it was, and those parts of it. I think for me, I had such a big charge around the sexual aspect of Eros, and in in many ways, it kind of happened from my early life. Um, both of my parents had numerous affairs and relationships. They separated when I was before 1 year old because of affairs and relationships. And as things started in my life, it kind of continued with both of them having many lovers. And so that was, kind of what I saw around me. And then my mom being involved with Osho early on. And at 12, just hitting puberty, going over to the US and experiencing that kind of free and open sexuality. Um, and then kind of going back to South African boarding school during high school and not actually and having quite a, I think I only lost my virginity in university at age 18. So interesting, lost my virginity, such an anyway, we'll go into that another time.
And we
But
have to go on a whole journey to find it again.
yes, I forgot. Have you found yours?
I did for a while. And I lost it again. This constant journey of re-finding
It's
it.
that story. I lost my virginity, but I still got the box it came in.
I think we should talk just about virginity one day.
Yeah, it's okay.
Redefining it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and then entering a series of like very challenging monogamous relationships, and almost every relationship I got into from my first relationship, I said, I'm not really monogamous. I want you to know that that at some point, I'm gonna want to do things, and I really have difficulty. And then like a lot of relationships just never started because of that. It was like often my first date line. It's like, yeah, I'm not really monogamous, but and then I would never see them again. I was like, damn, I really like that person. Maybe I should be monogamous. And then sort of getting into relationships where it wasn't all like spoken up front, but then I was like, oh no, but this, but that. And then kind of hammering my colors to the mast and being polyamorous for a while, and then getting involved in a neo-tantra school stroke cult where we were practicing open relating very thoroughly. And then still I hadn't, that was all my
Quite
own.
viciously, actually, in some ways. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. No,
Mm.
well, it was just unrepentant.
Mm.
I don't know if it was vicious
Not
because it
vicious.
wasn't.
Fiercely, fiercely.
Yeah, it wasn't really trying to hurt, but it's like if you got hurt, that was just part of the
Being
training.
fiercely.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like
Yeah.
that was part of the pedal to the metal approach that was encouraged in that particular school. Um, but then, at some point within that, along the way, I did have this sense, I think long before I actually started my practice, my my tantric stroke sexual healing stroke sensual practice, I had a desire to have a practice and to do it professionally and to to share with others, what I'd learned and what I was learning, and to do it as work. Not It wasn't so much about the money. It was about the learning cycles. When you're doing it as your work, you're obviously doing it a lot more, and there's so many learning cycles, and so one can go deeper into Eros. At the same time, various sexual traumas and sexual addictions, which often weave together, um, were running in me, and I was aware of some of them, but not all of them. And so part of it was also offering healing, the wounded healer, the classic story. We're offering the healing we seek. And so, and part of that engagement is our own healing journey, and especially around sexuality and sensuality, those can be really stickily, somewhat messily interwoven, and the maturity and the deep integrity of disentangling that, and being able to hold space, that came later along the line. So that was tricky. Fortunately for me, I've got kind of some protection, so it wasn't too egregious, my crimes and my mistakes. But
Protection
definitely,
from?
well, no,
Or how?
my spirit, I always went into it with the desire to heal and help people. I never went into it just for my own
So your protection
benefit.
was your intention.
My intention. Yeah, my intention.
Totally.
So although I made mistakes and there was confusion and stuff which I did, wasn't always aligned, because of that intention and that kind of like purity in a way, it meant that, and also I didn't have the teaching.
Your intention is often the strongest protection we've got.
Definitely. Yeah. And so in spite of the mistakes made, nothing was too terrible. But anyway, we can go into that. We will go into that a little bit later. Um, and then, yeah, I think I'll do the setup, and then I'll hand over to you to do how you came to your professionalism. And then at some point, I actually wanted to do it sooner than I did start. But I had this thing that I had to have some money before I started doing this work, because I saw so many spiritual practitioners terribly poor and suffering, and I didn't want to be one of them. So it's like, okay, well, I'll just do some kind of business things, and I'll save up a whole lot of money, and then I'll go and do it. Um, and then it was actually my first ever Iboga journey, which told me that I had it back to front, and that I would never have money until I started offering my gifts and being of service and doing my work. And that was part of, it's something called calling sickness in the shamanic world. And until you actually meet your calling, you're not going to be given what you need. And so then I stepped into my calling, and initially, it was, with the tantric sexual healing, sexual awakening work. And then later on, it became pure sensual massage and touch work. Um, and then the work with the boga kind of was a sort of parallel strand, which grew sort of separately to that. But the first work I was sitting into, it was interesting because I put up a website, Sex, Money, and God, and but it was kind of like a bad website, and it didn't really say what I was doing. And one of my colleagues in the Tantra school, she looked at my website and she said, I kind of feel like you're going, I have a calling, and I need to meet it. And so here we go. And here's this website. And she's like, if you're serious about it, maybe you could do a bit better. So I was like, okay, I hear that. And so then I hung up a shingle, which I often say to people when you have a real calling or something's really speaking to you. It's like put it out there. Put up a website, put up your adverts, put up your posts, and see who comes, and then respond. and figure it out. Offer everything you have to offer. Um, and that's what I did. I put it out there and people started coming and I started working with them and I did the
How
best.
did you put it out there?
I put adverts up,
Where?
various online forums. I think back in the day there was something called the Gumtree. I do think it still exists. I put adverts on the Gumtree. There was a kind of spiritual seeking website called it was what was that site? Remember there was that site which was Robin's site.
Holistica.
Yes. Yes.
That was a magazine.
No, no,
Was it a
no.
site as well?
So no, it wasn't Holistica. It was, but she was involved with
Link,
Holistica.
LinkedIn.
No, 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 it wasn't that. It was, yeah, there was the link up thing. It was, anyway, it was a website of listings for spiritual practitioners. A little bit like Solo is today. It might still exist. It might even still be around. And I had a profile on there, and some Facebook events and adverts. And I started doing a weekly event called the Dharma Lab, where I'd post the event and then I'd speak about my session work and the things that I did there, and just various ways of putting it out there that this is what I was offering and this is what I did.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to share your
How I came upon.
going professional and offering what you did and doing what you did? And I'm going to tell you what you did.
Okay. Um, so the primary expression of Eros that I have been successfully involved in and with has been through the arts, through performance arts, and through ceremony serving, through mastering ceremony with my voice. And I came upon it totally by surprise. It's never what I imagined I would be doing because I was always a very shy person. Now they call it a radical introvert. I accept that about myself now. Um, but I was following dreams. I was having dreams, and I had a deep desire to sing. I always had a strong, good voice, well-tuned voice. In the beginning, when I was invited to sing on a stage by some people, then I sat behind all the other musicians and made sounds into the microphone that people couldn't recognize as human sounds because I was just, but they made harmony and it sounded good. So I wasn't invited back again because I wasn't putting on much of a show. And then, yeah, I was invited to join this group called the Balloon Company, the Amsterdam Balloon Company, who were coming from Amsterdam. They came from Amsterdam to do upliftment, in an upliftment tour around South Africa, mostly in rural areas. And I really wanted to join them. It felt very strong. And there was a boy who I had a big crush on because I recognized him from another incarnation as a lover, and I had not yet let go of him. Who was going on the tour, but I couldn't go on it because we had a family holiday. So I joined them straight after the family holiday. I hitchhiked, no, I caught a taxi from Joburg to Russell's Valley, which is where they were in the then Orange Free State. And yeah, I was met by a Sangoma at the taxi rank and given a name and taken to Russell's Valley. So it was all very cosmic. My life in those days was like living in a storybook. And I met them there, and I was dancing in the shadows and like hiding away as I did. And a still talker from Amsterdam called Bert came up to me and he said, "You're a still talker. I can see by the way you dance." And so I was like, okay. And the next day, he dressed me up in my swimming costume, which was a full piece, all neon colors, thing and painted UV all over me and gave me a pinch of magic mushrooms and took me dancing in the UV place of the festival. So I couldn't hide. No, not with stilts yet. You know, I joined them from there though. This was a blossoming. I guess the mushrooms helped a lot, and also being visible, deeply visible, but masked. So I joined them and I discovered the medicine of the mask. I discovered that, you know, me, by that time, I had already married myself in personal ceremony to working and living only for the highest good of all. So everything I did was in service to the greater good. And when I painted my face, then I was entering into sacred space. And I felt safe there. I felt safe in sacred space. I felt like I could trust the world because I had made a prayer that said that only those things that are for the greatest good of all can be present here. And that's how it was. So I was safe and I could be. And yeah, when I painted my face, I was kind of kicked out to the side and my channel opened. This was a relatively new experience. I had experienced it on the dance floor before with trance music, where my channel opened and my body moved of its own accord, and I had visions and I journeyed and I started learning about that actually there's energy all over the place and it's not just what it looks like. And, you know, the boundaries are beyond what feels like the boundaries. Yeah, and so I started being trained on the dance floor, but when I painted my face, it was a very visceral experience of not being in charge of my body anymore. And I agreed to that because I was in sacred space. So,
and with the balloon company right away, were you doing performances
yeah,
and it was a busking at that point?
that wasn't busking because they were doing an organized tour. So it began with a parade through the Naledi, the local village in Russell's Valley area. And we all dressed up. I had a beautiful dress that a man gave me that had like concentric circles on it of bright colors, and it was a kaftan. And so I painted my face in concentric circles to match the kaftan, and that was me. That became who I was. And, you know, it was always the same character that came through when I painted my face. The people called me Lolly when they first met me. I called them the people. These are the people who who joined the balloon company as well. The and they didn't know my name. They just called me Lolly. So that became the name of that character, which, yeah.
How did you manage survival at this point? What was your
So
income flow?
yeah, I joined them. They had a group. The balloon company went to Johannesburg from Russell's Valley to a warehouse, which was an old bakery in Brixton. And it had been taken over by a group called BDI, Backdoor Initiative. They still exist in Joburg. They're amazing. I love these people. They're like, I had dreamed about
Again,
them all.
troubadours.
The troubadours, yeah. I dreamed about them before I met them. I dreamed about them before I met the balloon company, actually. And it was funny because in the dream, I was put in the back of a loony bin van, and that's where they all are. That's where I met them in the dream, in the back of a loony bin van. And yeah, another part of me was going in a rubber ducky, and we landed up with a whole lot of dolphins, and each one of us was swimming with a dolphin. The dolphins gave a great teaching
But
about addiction.
okay, so
Yeah.
you haven't answered my question.
The where we had to start surviving. So the balloon company had one more performance at the that theater. What's it called? The Mask Theater or something. It's in the center of Joburg. And I joined them for that. And then after that, they left, and the guys made me some stilts. And I walked on stilts easily after taking 4 steps. They were 1.5 meters high. It was like remembering. Um, and we went out busking. We went to the local, what's it called? A place where there was loads of clothes from overseas that you could buy for 5 rand, and old shower curtains. And so we made costumes out of all sorts of secondhand stuff and throwaway fabrics that I can't remember what it's called now. Huge big factory full of stuff. And we went out busking, and I was the magic hatter. And so I was on stilts dancing with fire. I was a clown. When I painted my face, I discovered I was a clown, a blue-nosed clown with a geisha face with geisha lips and geisha cheeks, but a blue nose. And Lolly would come in, and she wouldn't go out until I washed my face off again. And I couldn't speak any English while my face was painted for the first 7 years. It was very, very strong. She sang a lot, you know. I collected money from the people at the restaurants. I went into the restaurants after we'd finished performing and took the hat around the tables.
And did you feel this sense of, like talking about Eros, the sense of will desire just aligned in you, and this was
There was nothing else I could do. It was the only thing that brought me joy. I knew I was in the right place doing the right thing. Gosh, we really, like this was in another place, like living in the gutter. There was only barely enough money to eat. But also at the same time, it was a world of absolute miracles. It was an absolute, the synchronicities were flowing fast and strong. The stories I've got to tell from that part of my life, this experience, really reads like a children's storybook.
does it feel like the Eros
Magical.
was really coming in? Like you said somebody came in, so it's kind of like this top down.
Mm,
No, because
yeah.
you see, my experience of it was very bottom up.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's phenomenal. And, in that place, I remember being dressed head to toe in blue, being painted up, being hired to walk out on stilts amongst a crowd of 6,000 people who were that was a concert, and making my way through to the front of the stage, and of course being elevated above everyone, dancing the whole crowd. There was so much resonance flowing through this vehicle that is me, then working together with the people on the stage and bringing it out and connecting. Those days I could see far, I didn't need glasses. Connecting with the people way at the back and dancing in union with them, and watching them follow my moves, and, like really this not only top down, because at the same time there's a very big flow from inside the earth as well. This was people used to say, how can you do that stuff on stilts? It's your foot on the earth is this big and you've got no ankles, so you can't really stand still very easily. Um, and I was just like, I'm walking on my feet. I'm walking on the ground on my feet. That's what I'm doing. So a state of balance that was phenomenally multidimensional, actually. And then this profound connection through and together with Lolly. Over the years, I did learn at some point because I was asked to by one of my colleagues and my partner at the time, to put a gatekeeper at my gate so that I could step in and out. And when we were off stage, I could speak in English and communicate. And then it became more and more fluid as time went, so that I could speak in English while Lolly learned how to speak English. Lolly learned how to speak Afrikaans. It's the same with ancestors, actually. Sometimes we have to train our ancestors to speak the language that we know and that other people know, so that we can communicate when they're in. Yeah, when I was performing, and most powerfully, I think, when I was singing, um, the Eros came through and moved mountains. It brought people to tears. It opened their hearts. We used to dance fire and change people's realities.
It was nearly always one to many.
Yeah,
See,
yeah,
most of my work was one-on-one.
yeah. No,
That's
my
it,
work was
it was
with crowd. My work was with large crowd. The largest was probably about 8,000.
mm,
And it was one to many with my voice. Yeah, with my voice, with my appearance, with my body, with my movement, with my precision, with absolute precision. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And there wasn't much money. I only was able first to buy shoes for my kids when I became a sangoma. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, we'll go into the details about the stage stuff later, and then also how the structures of making living around it worked. Yeah, I'll share a bit around my early work and my later work. In the beginning, I think I was charging money, but it was part-time. So I would have various students, and I think I did like 3 months at a time, meeting every week for 90-minute session a week. And then I was available in between. And so we'd do these 90-minute sessions once a week. And then people would work with me for 3 months at a time. And it was kind of like taking people through their de-armoring and their blocks and their wounding, and examining the inner child work and the erotic patterning, recapitulation of the story. What is your first first experience of sexual energy, of intimacy, and then how did that create this blueprint through your life? So often I'd take the first few sessions to map that out, and then understanding that blueprint that people had, um, then really getting a clear idea of what was needed. Was it deep work with the parents? Was it around was it sometimes related to partnership? Was it uh, queer energies, frequencies which were unacknowledged? Um, was it some sort of childhood wounding that needed to be brought back? Was it inner child stuff coming out that needed to be worked with and held? And then there was the sexual awakening aspect. And so that was working with touch work, with massage, with body work, and then working with heart genital connection, and opening up uh, the erotic patterning through work with the genitals, and then bringing that into the full body and the full body energy. So, and then the other way around, bringing the full body also down into the genitals, and mostly touch work on a table, but sometimes on a mat, full body uh, physical work, and that work initially, primarily, I was working with women. So for the first 2 or 3 years, I only worked with women, and there was a particular journey that people would go on of this kind of energy waking up, and starting to break down ideas of how we need to be, this kind of right and wrong, moral and immoral. Um, what is my partnership story? Some people were in partnership, some people were single. and really wanted to have a partner. And so working with that, also that patterning, I'd often get people, I mean, this was back around 2015, 16, 17 when I started working. So about 10 years ago. And I'd often get people who are single who are trying to learn about their patterning. I would say, get onto Tinder, and not for the purpose of meeting a partner, or even necessarily going on dates, but because sometimes on Tinder you would just have a conversation. And I mean, I've not been on the apps for a long, long time, so I've got no idea what the latest, greatest apps are. But I'm sure Tinder's been replaced with something better, or they're different apps. But on the app, what you'd do is you'd have this connection with somebody, and then there could be a whole uh, like a massive relationship in the space of 3 or 4 days, and then it would be over, and you'd block each other and never speak again. Or sometimes there'd be a meeting or not. And so it was never about the meeting. It was about seeing the reflection of my patterning when certain energy arises. And in this work, my job was in many ways to be a surrogate for those projections and those patternings. So, as a surrogate, when you're raising erotic energy with somebody, then the past stories, the childhood stories, the now I know, but I didn't know then, the ancestral energies, all these aspects and energies come through, and they want to be met, and they project it onto you. So you can become the villain, you can become the crush, you can, there are all these aspects. And so when you're touching somebody so intimately, or you're working with them and you're
The
coaxing all of
father.
those to the surface, often the father, um, and the various exes, and often also the mother. And I've noticed that, I mean, certainly it was my case, when I was doing relationships. I would have a relationship with somebody who was in one way my mother. Always relationships with women, quite mostly heterosexual. Um, and then I'd have a relationship with my father. So I'd have a relationship with a woman who was very much, and the blonde woman tended to be like, my blonde partners tended to be more like my father, and my dark haired partners tended to be more like my mother. And so that was a process for a period of time. But in the work, yeah, one would start to see the whole array, and actually helping people separate those out, because it would start all together. And then it's kind of like doing this and seeing all the Photoshop layers, one on top of another. And like, oh, here's that one, here's that one, here's that one, here's the good girl, here's the slut, here's the one who's repressed, who won't engage her energy. Here's the one who can only engage her energy when it's secret. And I've got this big heat around infidelity. And so you'd find all these different aspects with people, and then I'd help coax them out, and then we'd work with one at a time. What does the good girl need? What does this one need? And then bring that back into the erotic energy, which would help to liberate them, which would help to understand them and liberate them and work with them. And so this was a process, and it would go deeper and deeper. And then at some point you'd start to reach these kind of core wounds. And that required like a very delicate holding space and time, because like a lot would come up. So it was a lot of and it was really deep, intense work. So, I think I think when I started, it was like 3 grand a month, and there was a 90-minute session every week. It was 3 grand a month, and then we'd do like 3 months at a time. And then we'd renew for another 3 months, and often we'd carry on for like a year or so. But some people only did 3 months. And that was sort of my kind of package offering. Um, but there was so much holding in between with messages and calls, and so between, and sometimes it was needed more than one session a week. So it wasn't, but I kind of somehow managed between that and some freelance. I was still doing some freelance kind of internet video, web stuff. I managed to sort of piece everything together. And then a few years into that, what happened is, I had certain people who wanted to really go deep as students and like very deeply study this work, and it became very difficult for them to hold the depth of that work and everything that they were going through, and keep a kind of regular job in the culture and in society. And also the changes that they were going through meant kind of burning through a lot of social aspects which made you employable. So a lot of people started having a struggle with work. And then this really came from the school that I was in, which really encouraged um, doing sensual touch work as a way to earn quite a lot of money quite quickly. Because you could make a living off like 4 or 5 sessions a week. If you had a session a day or 2 sessions a day, as long as you lived relatively cheaply, you could make a living. And then so most of your time could be devoted to your practice, your spiritual practice and the study. And then you could do a bit of this touch work. So I would sometimes encourage people. I'd be like, well, if you're really struggling, you can do this as work. And I'd help them work. But then that's a whole world. And to help somebody into that, and then everything that happens because of that, and the whole archetype gets activated, and especially women working with men. It's a bit different, men working with women.
Mm.
And so for me, it became very important to understand what I was suggesting that people do. And so I started doing sensual touch work purely for money, not as like erotic touch work with men. Um, and that was a like a very big learning because suddenly suddenly the kind of like I could feel what it was like to be pr projected onto as purely a sexual object of desire rather than in the kind of more teacher space which I'd been in before. um, and just would have men come who just really wanted to um, ejaculate and get a massage, get a happy ending massage, and there wasn't necessarily too much more to it than that. I mean, I would bring a lot of spiritual energy in the massage, so there was like a kind of neo-tantric aspect to it. Um, but that I did for a couple of years, and it was interesting because my income shot right up when I was doing that. I was suddenly earning much more money than I'd ever earned before. um, because and I was also charging more. I think I still doing 90-minute sessions. I think I went to 1,200 1,500 rand a session. This was back in 2017, 2018. And there were and I would have 2 3 sessions a day. And then that was my practice. Then was it kind of became part of my practice of even though that wasn't there wasn't necessarily sensual eros for me, because I didn't have I don't have a big attraction for men and male bodies. It's not big in me. And then some of the men who were coming were in pretty terrible shape. Like just not necessarily aesthetically hugely appealing. And that became a practice of like deep compassion and love, and meeting the body on the table and meeting its needs, and understanding that it's coming for a need, and then going into this kind of deep space. It was a deepening of my service in the realm of sexuality, sensuality, and really being of service. And it kind of started happening also in the other teaching practice, the work with women. It also started happening that it became less and less. And at this stage, I was kind of more polyamorous, and I had multiple relationships, but I didn't have like a core person or a deep relationship. I was working through my own personal erotic patterning through multiple relating. Um, but I was kind of also of service at that point. So um, there was this piece. I mean, there's a line in Zorba the Greek, the book where Zorba is talking to the kind of his boss or the guy, the narrator of the book. And Zorba says to him, if a woman ever wants to go to bed with a man and he says no, there's a special hell reserved for those men. And I really took that on. And so it was like if somebody needed, in our community specifically, if somebody needed support or healing, I was available. And it really became like being this dumping ground for energy and just being really, I mean, in my touch work with men, I was quite well paid, but then in this other work, and really sacrificing my own personal, relational, and sexual energy to the community, to the world. It was like, okay, I'm kind of this public property in a way. But always like, I would consensual, but then I just wouldn't say no. So
And you were loving still. You loved.
yeah, I mean, it taught me like my love went so much deeper in this, in both aspects of this, because you're dealing with people, and I mean, gosh, I was definitely used during that time a lot. People would just, call me up when they needed something, and for me, it was, oh, you need healing, but I was just being used. Um, and then, and then also at the same time working with these men who had this whole complex of desires and energy. Some had never been with a man before, so they had the repressed sexual energy, desire for men. So there were priests and doctors and all sorts of people who had some sort of fantasy, but they'd never been able to live it out, who wanted to come, who felt like I could be a safe space for them to explore that. Um, and then also some people who just were sex addicts who just any new piece of meat on the adverts, they'd go and sometimes they'd have to set quite clear boundaries. I mean, I remember, being asked to be naked a lot. I would just have like a lungi tied around my waist, but people were like, no, you need to be naked. Can I touch you? Sometimes trying to touch me. And then I was like, had to have like quite clear, no, this is about you receiving. I never, that was, I didn't go any further than that work. So I was never actually allowing people to, um, well, with men. I was never allowing men to touch me. It was different in my work with women, but that was also rare, to allow them to touch me. Um, and that was more where some of the blurry lines got between students and lovers. And I can talk about that a bit also when we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, all of those things. But I think, it's a good moment to hand back to you and, like your work going deeper and, like where
Yeah. I
how
mean,
the erotic impulse of the stage evolved.
erotic impulse of the stage.
And it was also very related to your lover and in partnership for you, wasn't it?
Well,
Or it
he
became
came
that way.
into it. Yeah, he came into it. The erotic impulse of the stage. Those are not words I would choose.
Forget those words. Yeah. Do you need a different prompt?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. How did the 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 flow of energy and this path of um desire as energy and will, where did it take you to? And how did it train you?
Um, well, it took me first through being on the streets, and the primary reason behind performing was really to wake people up out of their sleep states or partial sleep states and inspire them to live, to be alive, to connect, as part of life, to connect. with the earth, really there was also of course, an aspect of survival, needing to eat and make money. There was also very much
But there wasn't much money, was there?
no, not at all. No, not at all. The culture of busking was not a thing in South Africa. We were not that far away from apartheid. It was not a developed thing at all. People mostly thought we were either on drugs or a little bit mad, but they did recognize the skill, and I was very highly skilled, very quickly and easily. And I mean, that was, I suppose, part of the Eros. Erotic feels like not quite the right word. Eros is more accurate because it's about desire, creation, co-creation. Like to create perfect shapes with fire. It's like lovemaking or to the movement aspect. You understand if you're a dancer, to create perfect posture in movement and to transmit, I guess it's Eros, to transmit through that posture, through those movements, through that exactitude. And then at the same time, I had the safety of the sacred space that is the stage. And I had the safety of the sacred space that is the mask. Even working, I loved actually working on the streets. Even when I became a professional, I was one of the first people I was the first person in our troupe who was probably the first street performing troupe in South Africa. There were only circuses before that. And, at the casinos, sometimes in the theaters. But so we were on the streets, and then I was hired to help to launch CakeNet, and they body painted me. So I was naked in a G-string, which I had no problem with those days. I used to take off my clothes quite regularly and just wear a loincloth when it was hot at festivals. So I did do some kind of sexual healing stuff without realizing it. Again, with large groups, I would run around more or less naked at festivals, playing with children and selling beetroot soup and stuff. And men would come to me. I had it happen a few times where a man comes to me like at the end of the day and he said, thank you so much, because in the beginning, when I saw you, I was like getting all turned on and I was like, what? And then I just watched him and was like, actually, she's just actually like a natural being, like children are, So that's more what I was working with, whether I was clothed or not, whether I was in a mask or not. I was working with shifting consciousness, with educating consciousness. When we were working in the corporate environment, we had the opportunities to script and create costumes
So
for,
was
and
how did it come in? So now you're on the streets and now suddenly like you're getting hired or you're getting gigs in corporates or,
yeah.
like, so now there's a bit more money or.
There was a bit more money, but still not enough. In the days when I was on the street, I was paying 200 Rand rent a month, and I was the only person who actually paid. I didn't pay rent, until, gosh, I didn't pay rent until my kids were, I just didn't have homes. And I mean, as I lived
So you were
in
living
the
in quite,
garden,
yeah,
in a
different places.
caravan, or I lived, yeah, I didn't pay rent until, when was it? Like there were 4.5 and 2. Yeah.
But so now you're doing gigs for corporates.
Yeah, so I got hired to do this thing. So, and then they hired us as a troupe to hand out flyers when they launched the voter shops, we did that all around the Gauteng area and down in Durban. Um, and then when I was moved to Cape Town, We lived in also a madhouse there, the old Falkenberg, before it got fixed up into Odermolen village. We worked on the streets initially, and then I had an idea to go into this. I heard about this woman in Hout Bay whose name was Debbie Bird, and she had an events company. So I went in and introduced myself and, showed her some photographs
Why
of.
don't you ask for events?
Yeah, and I became her co-writer, writing scripts for big corporate theatre things for the Mining and Darbers and the launch of that big shop, that nice one in Greenpoint there, and all sorts of different things all over the place. And we wrote scripts that were ancient creation mythology. And we got to use pyrotechnics and aerial artists and, like strobe and UV and blacklight theater and the most fantastic expressions of life through visual and sound. Oh, actually, we took people on these radical sound journeys.
So at the same time as your
And it was all very sexy as well. Our costumes were always very sexy and, but they were art. They were art. The finishing touches were immaculate. It was
at the same
really,
time
really
as your
impeccable.
fool, there was also a musical aspect to it, like a
Yeah, very
band.
strongly.
But you also had a band and a,
We had that as well. So there was the corporate stuff, which and on in the corporate theatre work, and it became more and more in private work as well when we were hired for welcoming of events, which was a lot. The clowns are welcome mats. All real clowns have got many skills, and actually they can dress in any costume, any character, and that clown persona will be there able to perform with whatever tools are given to them. Clowns are high skill, very high skill, real clowns. There's not so many of them around, but I had the privilege of working with some phenomenal clowns, where we could, this is now
I mean, there's a
this
piece
is
here,
living spontaneity.
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 But there's a piece here
It's amazing.
I mean, it's not necessarily the topic of this particular session, so we maybe need to bring it in another session. But the sense of like kind of draining the shadow energy of society and working with that shadow energy, that the repressed shadow energy, because I know that,
We did
I
that
also
very
encountered it so
directly.
much in my
Yeah,
work. And it's kind of like these kind of discharge places for shadow
yeah,
energy, and
yeah.
you're at the bottom rung, which is kind of fundamentally very tantric,
Totally. Mm,
like kind of beggars, clowns, prostitutes, it's like
yeah,
all this kind of bottom rung of society, which is where the culture can discharge its energy, move its shadow work through.
yeah, yeah.
you know?
Yeah, when you've got your face painted as a clown, you can get away with absolutely anything.
But you also treat it like
You treat it a bit like a dirty rag. Yeah, this is your space and time, and otherwise we don't want to see you. You know. The fact that you have a normal life, we will pay you what we want to pay you because we know that you need the work. And if you don't take it, we'll just give it to somebody else. So it was really like that. But then there's also this real phenomenal dance that happens between the audience and the performance artists and the like when you're making love with someone, if you really are, if you're in communion with that person, when you're performing, especially the way that we did, which was oftentimes not rehearsed. We went into these corporate theater presentations with 1 hour of rehearsal to tell the lighting and sound guys what to do. And just lined up the costumes, said to the troupe, okay, this is the order that we're coming out. This is who we are. Let's do it. So there was no choreography. There was no time for that. There was no, but because we stepped out the way, we opened the channel, we allowed pure Eros to flow through and carry our bodies. And the costume shaped the container for the Eros. And the story shaped the container for the costumes, the myth that we were weaving. So it happened perfectly, and it looked like we had performed that show for 3 months, you know. Actually, I mean, I know some other troops, they do have to perform things like rehearse a show and then sell that show and do it again and again. We never did that. We just created costumes and downloaded myths and then opened the channel and allowed pure life force to come and tell the story through us.
It's
So,
interesting because I also considered myself an artist in my work, but it's like for an audience of one. And it's so fully embodied in their energy field and in their experience and what they're experiencing. And this is an art form that you're producing for this person in this moment to take them on this whole. It's interesting because like both of what we did, to kind of reflect on how we hold ceremonial space and what we take people through, the depths of their psyche and their soul and their emotions and their feelings. Um, and of course, with the medicine play, you can take that and using all of those skills from our past, where it goes to now. But back then, it was very much like this as an audience. And sometimes I was like, oh, it's such a pity. This is never going to be experienced by anybody else other than this one person. It's like,
yeah, well, same with us. Other than these
this
50 people or
moment,
these
yeah.
20 people or these 1,000 people or whatever, however many it was, it's never going to. I remember I did actually once only I was hired with my voice as my highest skill, and it was by Valentina, Mrs. Love, and she cast me as the moon, and we did this corporate show, and it was so great. We all agreed to do it a second time for friends and family. And so that's the only time we did that. Yeah. And yeah, there was actually for that a little bit of rehearsal, more rehearsal because Val was directing. And so she had spaciousness to do that. Yeah.
It's interesting this thing about timing and rehearsal, though, that also
Terrible at it. I'm terrible at
that
rehearsal.
yeah, but that also touched me in a way because when I would be having a new session with somebody, now understanding ancestors and understanding the healing work, I know that it was all of their ancestors and their aspects and the healing that they needed arriving before. But
Yeah.
you'd often have this feeling of trepidation or like heaviness. You'd be like, oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, I hate my job. Why am I doing this? What's going on again? And then, of course, you'd arrive and you'd do the session and you'd feel amazing afterwards, when all of that moved and you managed to bring that healing energy through. But also sometimes I would have no idea what to do. But like I'm seeing this person for the first time and I don't know what they need and I don't know what to do. And this feeling like kind of imposter syndrome but then I'd open sacred space. I'd call in the energies. I'd call in the frequencies. And then I would know, oh, I'm doing this first and I'm doing that. We're talking about this. We're talking about that. We're doing some kind of constellation work. And then I'm putting them on the table. And then, we're working with their body.
Yeah.
And so it would become quite clear in the, as one arrives into the space and you get your game on and everything moves, it feels like it comes together.
I never had fear or uncertainty or doubt or trepidation leading into a show when I was performing, nor into a ceremony, serving ceremony until quite recently, which is interesting. I never, you know, I would be given the story, given the myth, and prepare all of the props and costumes and whatever. And tune in the people, which was at the same time as open the sacred space, the troop, tune in the troop, and then go in and do it. And there was always certainty around the fact that the channel would open, the channel of the whole stage would open, and everybody would be in the right place at the right time, and it happened like that. Then when I started working with cacao in ceremony, and that was the seat of serving, was the place where the channel opened. Then it was the same thing. I would be told the title of the ceremony, what we're going to be working with. I didn't know how it was going to go, but just, yeah, open the channel and let the life flow.
We've got 15 minutes left.
Okay.
So I thought we'd answer these things. The good?
What
The
was the
good, the
good?
good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the difficult, the absurd, the heartbreaking, and the transcendent.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask you, and then you can ask me. So what was the good?
The good was being able to shine as brightly as I can with all of my skills, with all of my gifts, and those gifts that I've received through the body of ancestors. I am, together with other people, shining amazingly brightly, to be able to frame others, to be able to be framed by others, and it to be okay. Because the people understood that we were on a stage. Even if they were right close to us because we were busking, we were on a stage. So I was allowed to shine. Nobody tried to shut me down. That was the best of the good. Yeah.
The bad?
The bad, okay, so the bad was being treated like a welcome mat. The bad
Are you getting paid?
was also that experience of the good keeping me in an unhealthy relationship for 13 years with my partner, because we worked together. And every time we performed, then all the good, all the good washed away the bad for a little while. Yeah, the bad was not actually really being able to connect with other people properly, because I had not yet become comfortable enough in myself to be with people without some form of mask. Yeah,
The ugly?
the ugly. Oh, maybe those are the same. What's the ugly? Did I already speak the ugly?
Maybe some of them.
I think I already spoke
The
some of
bad
the
and
ugly.
ugly together.
Yeah. The ugly actually also, there was, I had a very big following. There were so many people who thought I was something that I was, but also in my home life, everything was broken. I couldn't buy shoes for my children. Like, there was no peace. It was chaos. So they saw one part of me, and they also projected that back at me, like, again and again and again. And it was very difficult to get away from that, or to meet people in the real. It was very difficult to, and that felt ugly inside me, because yeah, it kind of kept me trapped in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the good was
In fact, when I left that life, then I got some people came up to me angry with me, because how could I do this? How could I do this? I'm just dropping everybody and everything. How could I do this, Yeah. Yeah. That was ugly.
for me, the good was the sheer courage of like breaking through your inner barriers to who you think you are, what you think you are. It was also the refinement of sensitivity. Actually, no, that was kind of the beautiful. I'll wait for that.
Yeah.
The good was, yeah, the good was really breaking through one's barriers and the sheer courage of that work, and that work which so many people would never do or just thought was this terrible thing, and really finding equanimity in the midst of that was really good.
Mm.
Um, the bad was oh, the bad was uh, the the times when it just wasn't fun, when one was really um, like showing up for people but not really showing up for yourself, showing up for others but not showing up for oneself, and also people who just didn't get what you were trying to do and just wanted to get off. And no matter how much you tried to steer in another direction, it was just about the sexual. You couldn't get it out of that realm, and they were so stuck there. And then you were kind of serving there, but you felt like they were just
You
scratching an
felt.
itch. I felt like I was just scratching an itch.
I had that kind of bad too
Yeah,
with
and
my
that
family.
yeah, and that it was never going to change. And then the ugly was the sex addiction in the practitioners, and my practitioner, my peers, and my mentors, the radical sex addiction and the sexual abuse disguised as healing and growth and sexual awakening. But it was just fulfilling sex addiction. There was definite sexual abuse. Um, and that was, yeah, that was ugly.
Mm. I think that I said the beautiful instead of the good.
Oh, did you? Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's fine. The beautiful, do you have
The,
anything to
the
add?
beautiful was being able to shine, because gosh,
Yes.
it's such a gift to be able to just be who you are,
Yeah.
and to just to shine your beauty
Yeah.
without being cut down
Mm,
or feeling like you need to hide. The good that I didn't speak, the good was, popping around the corner of a slot machine at the casino with someone who's been there for hours losing everything, and waking them up out of that, and the joy, right, their inner child, the joy coming back to them, and the joyful, like reawakening people. The good was,
mm,
yeah, being held and carried in the realm of the magical for years and years and years. The good was
mm,
really, yeah, attaining a space of freedom,
mm,
really attaining a space of freedom in expressing myself
mm.
with my whole being, with my whole body. Yeah, not really sexually, because whenever I really tried to be sexy, then my clown character would come and start playing jokes.
The difficult.
uh, the difficult was really,
Nice.
yeah, and like the survival
That's money.
aspect, the money aspect was difficult. The compromises I had to make to my children,
Mm,
um, leaving them with my parents, were, like, which was great and also not great,
mm.
yeah, the
The
the,
absurd.
the absurd. Oh, but that was the fun part. We could do so much absurd, and it was just fun. It was just fun, and it awoke laughter in the people. It was funny because I was not a laughing clown. My clown partner Lulu had to paint a smile on her face all the time because she laughed so much at me all the time. But I never laughed. I couldn't. My character didn't laugh.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the beautiful was the subtle, the arising of subtle perception in the body,
Mm,
where, with like the lightest, most delicate of touches,
mm,
it could flush feeling through the entire body, and then also witnessing that awake in other people,
mm.
witnessing the subtle frequencies of feeling, and not just touch, but feeling in the heart, feeling in the emotions, that somebody's feeling sense wakes up and
We
they
did
start
that
to
through
really feel.
creating beauty.
Yeah.
Through creating beauty, we did that. That inspired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The difficult was the the loneliness
Mm,
of it,
yeah.
where there's so much um sexual sensual energy going around, and yet this feeling like you're alone in it, and you are alone, and there's the kind of there is heart connection, but it's not personal. It's transcendent. It's like the large heart, and so the personal heart and the personal just felt like so left behind, and it was very lonely.
I had the loneliness too, but only after I got into partnership, into relationship. Before, when I was primarily troop, then there wasn't loneliness.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the absurd, I mean, there were kind of moments of the absurd, but it's weird in the sacred sexuality or in the sensuality space. It's quite serious.
It's aloof.
It's
It's
aloof and
aloof.
it's a bit serious, and there's not great senses of humor or a whole lot of
No.
laughter in those spaces. I mean, there's kind of the telling of funny stories and jokes and things like that, but there's not like this real, it's wonderful because my work with the boga, there's been such a sense of the absurd with the wood, and how
Mm.
it presents itself and where it takes us and how it manifests reality. And yeah, in that space, there was a lack of the absurd, I think.
We made the absurd our profession.
Yes, the heartbreaking and the transcendent.
Mm. I think the most heartbreaking parts were around my family and my children.
Mm.
But mostly that was actually connected with my relationship. Um, although
Mm.
when my children came, then it became very difficult to survive. Before they came, then it was easy because I really didn't need much, and I was always taken care of by the universe. Financially, I always had a roof over my head and food and enough money to get where I needed to go and pay my dues.
Mm.
Yeah,
The transcendent.
transcendent. Gosh, when your place of performance is full of obstacles. There's umbrellas and there's chairs and tables and all sorts of things, and you have to dance with fire and be graceful and smooth and elegant and do all sorts of tricks, and you've got to get everything in perfect lines when you're changing direction, and spinning in perfect lines, and then interacting with other performers in time with the music. That's quite a transcendent experience, when you are able to become one with the environment so deeply without looking, when you're so at one with the dance and the tools, when you've got tools in your hands as well. It's not just the body. And then when you add voice to that as well, which we often did, we got headset mics, so we were making the sound and dancing at the same time. um, that was really profound. That was really profound. Yeah. Mm.
Uh, the heartbreaking for me was when some people doing the practice, or in the practice of really going to the depths of their sexual, emotional, relational patterning, started really hitting their core wounds, and that erupted, and then the community and the people not being able to handle it. So like people being taken too deep too fast and actually getting broken, and it resulting in, kind of like complete shutdown and running away from that world, or um, really losing their mind, or even death in some cases, and and that not really being acknowledged by the people doing the work, their denials and justifications and excuses.
That non-dual thing.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's all meant to be. It all is what it is. And there were terrible things happen to people, and people who I really loved. And it was actually what took me out of that world for a long time. Because this is such potent energy, and if it's not held impeccably, then yeah, there can be real hurt, and there was real hurt in my world, and people who I was very close to, I loved a lot, um, were were really hurt, and that was completely heartbreaking. Yeah, and the transcendent is, when you're in a session space or a healing session, um, and you're working with somebody, and you look up and it's been like 5 hours or something, and you've just been moving through layers, and there's been tears and laughter and um, feelings of nausea and fear, and you've been able to go through all of that just in the field, in this incredibly deep intimacy, and yet it's not personal. It's just vast, and yeah, and that was transcendent. That kept me doing it for a long time.
Was that transcendent for you or for both of you?
um it was more for the person that I was working with.
Mm.
Yeah.
So there was a detachment.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mm.
for me, it was interesting because I I never really um I was not really given the level of healing work that I gave. I never worked with somebody. I mean, there was one partner of mine,
Mm.
you probably know who it was, who
Mm-hmm.
did a lot of work, a lot of healing work with me.
Mm.
But there were also some places where we just didn't manage to go, and also because it was in relationship, it was too close. So, I hadn't ever, found or been willing to give myself over to a practitioner, or been willing to pay, or whatever it was,
Mm.
to really go through that journey myself, that I was able to, like guide some others on.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm. Mm. Mm.
it's also a little bit heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it for me, it's also like it's a little bit like be careful sometimes of making your passion your work, because it can sort of, your personal joy in it can sometimes be a little bit subsumed or taken over. So that's a kind of fascinating aspect to this professional side of, the work with Eros. But in a way, if you don't have Eros in what you do, that's also terrible.
Mm.
You would never want that. That would be like
Not
the
what we
worst thing.
say, like full stop.
Full
If you
stop.
don't have Eros in what you do,
In what you do for a living or your vocation,
then
then you just
you don't have life force flowing through you in your work.
you're
Then
just in quiet desperation.
that's a state of
Or not so quiet
living
desperation.
dead state. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So um yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it for tonight.
Okay.
Unless you've got any last pieces. But I think we're at time. It's been an hour and a half. Oh,
Yeah.
it's been 8 minutes over an hour and a half. 8 minutes late.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those of you who hear live. And
Nice to see you.
yeah,
I
nice
see your
to
names.
see
I
you.
don't actually know the faces behind some of those names.
Yeah, and if there are any questions, or comments, whatever, feel free to drop it in the chat. And yeah, any requests, we can weave it into the future sessions, which will be in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Mhm. Hey, shall we finish with one round of the Mula mantra? Or 3 repetitions?
Okay. Okay.
No, 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 no.
No.
Kamadevaya.
No, I don't want to.
Okay, okay, okay.
We
Another
actually
time.
aren't set up our sound. It's
Okay,
not
fair enough.
sensible.
So giving
But we
thanks
can thank
to
everybody and
all the
everything who is
frequencies, all the
here
beings,
for
all those
holding
who
space
have
for the channel to
worked
open,
together with
for
us
the space of
to
sharing,
transmit the energy, to share the frequencies. Yeah, we are
to
grateful.
assist us as we
May it support the people.
untangle and
May it help.
reweave the meanings
May
and deep
the
grace,
stories
meanings
around
of
us,
and deep
and may it
grace
be
that
useful.
is Eros,
May it prove
to
beneficial
liberate it from
to
all of
those
the
who listen to
stories
it,
that have been put
to
on it
those who are
and
here with it.
woven
Yeah.
together with it, and to bring back to life and bring back to vision all the parts and faces of Eros that have been put into the shadows and forgotten about.
Of course.
The greatest good of all, we know that the Eros has nobody but our own, and all it is, total is. Thank you, namaste.
Namaste. Gracias. Good night, everybody. Have a lovely night. Ciao.